Good evening. We're going to start the meeting of this cabinet. The meeting is being live streamed on the council's YouTube channel. The recording of the meeting will remain online for 4 years, and if you are present in the chamber, you are consenting to appearing in the recording and broadcast, which may also be used for training purposes. The first item on the agenda is apologies. We've got apologies from Councillor Sarah Sawyer. Nobody else, I don't think. Declarations of interest. I don't know whether anybody's got declarations of interest to declare. No. Minutes of the meeting on the 12th of November and the 21st of November. Are you happy for me to sign them as accurate? Yep. Next item on the agenda is public questions. And David Reginald is not here and Mr. Miller is not here. So we'll go. Well, the agenda is the agenda and it's in that order. Let's move on to the next item. We haven't got any petitions and deputations. So the next agenda item is leader and cabinet member question time. We have got 15 minutes set aside for that. Right. We've moved on, but I'll take your questions at the end of member questions.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, but I won't take any questions for any other member of the public turning up now. Where am I? Member questions. Terry Pullen, you're first.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your answer to my question regarding the airport. I understand that due diligence was carried out on all bidders, and based on the process, Horizon Aviation became the preferred bidder. If due diligence was carried out in the first place, what's gone wrong? Reliable reports are claiming that the preferred bidder no longer has access to funds to complete the sale. To be frank, it doesn't look convincing that Horizon Aviation will be able to proceed. So is the leader still confident that the sale will go ahead? When are you estimating that will be? And what happens if the sale of the airport falls through?
I think we're working on the basis that the due diligence is now continuing, and that is a two-way process, both for the bidders and for the airport owners, and it's progressing, and it'll be complete when it's complete. Sometimes these things take longer than you'd expect, but it's a very detailed sale. There's a lot of property and assets there for the bidders to be reassured that they're getting the right value for it. And I think it's going to carry on. But can I say absolutely on anything? No, you can't until the contract's been signed. Just the same, if you're buying a house, it's not sold until it's sold, until everybody's signed the deal and paid the money. So let's see how quick it happens. But I'm reasonably confident that things are progressing. And frankly, there's some noise around in the media that's uncorroborated stuff that's been spouted out by individuals that hasn't got any basis in fact.
Okay, thank you. I have a second question, as you know, about disposal of assets. And let's be honest, property investors will be all too aware that the City Council are desperate to sell assets. They know that we will have to sell assets. If you look at HKP, the former City Council offices, that's taken years to sell and is still on the market. So, you know, you need to make sure that you sell assets quickly, but how are you going to avoid, by doing that, that you're actually avoiding a fire sale?
First of all, I wouldn't describe ourselves as being desperate to sell the assets. We do need to sell it, but we're certainly not going to rush out and do it next week or next month. We're going to take our time and we're going to do it properly. It's also, I don't think it's illegal for us to sell any property or land which is less and it's worth less than its market value. We can't do that, so it has to be done properly. It has to be done for a fair price. So that's why we will be bringing in outside expertise, and we'll be making sure that we will not rush things. The thing about the EFS support is it's, in many ways, you could say it's almost like a bridging loan. It gives us time. It buys us time to do this properly, and we'll make sure that these properties are properly marketed. So absolutely will not be a fire sale. And I would urge people to, you know, not keep on repeating that in public, because the more you say it, the more you create that impression. But certainly, we have no intention of rushing through anything, and we will get the best price, and we will do what's right for the residents of the city.
Question 3.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It concerns council finances, and I have to say, the answer you've given me doesn't give me confidence, I'm afraid, because it appears that council finances and processes are still operating on, quote, best estimates, or if you like, guesswork. Now, you say that, and I quote, budget processes are being revised and better monitored with budget managers. Can you explain what that means? And can you tell us how much longer it is going to be that Gloucester City Council's finances are being run on best estimates? When will we know, and when will we have statistics that are true, accurate and reliable?
Okay, thank you for that, Terry. Just to give everyone a little bit of context here, as you know, if you recall the meeting we had last week for the statutory recommendation from our auditors, you can see that the issues identified there were lack of resources in the finance team, lack of budget monitoring, lack of monthly reconciliations, no monitoring of purchase orders, and as you say, budgets not being updated year on year, so working on assumptions of previous budgets that were wrong. What we have done and what we are doing to improve things. First of all, as we said last week, we have asked the LGA to come in and look at the finance service and make recommendations of what we need to look at, the things we need to do to address the issues that have been raised. With regards to budget monitoring, we have already started a proper budget monitoring process, which works collaboratively with budget holders. So finance officers have now been allocated to each cost centre to ensure that the budget holder has a point of contact. And that is already in operation now. We have brought back monthly reconciliations for bank accounts and key balance sheet accounts such as debtors and creditors. I'm afraid that the simple truth of the matter is that we inherited a mess. We are fixing it now, and these processes are now being put in place. So moving forward, we will be dealing with real numbers rather than sort of the estimated numbers that we've been relying on in the past, which sadly turned out to be somewhat wide of the mark.
Alistair Chambers.
Thank you, Chair. Given the financial dire state of the council at the moment and the deficit, the crater of a black hole that's been created by the mismanagement of financials and the delayed accounts, surely before cutting public services, looking online, I noted that thousands of pounds each month are being spent on cakes and donuts from Jane's Pantry. Surely cutting things like that, which should be one of the first things before cutting public services, Thank you.
Yes, I had a quick look at that spreadsheet which you talked about. I'll go through that and I'll make sure that anything that's not necessary will be stopped. But, you know, the sad fact is that, you know, these are, although it all matters, they're all relatively minor items. We're going to need an awful lot more than that. But I take your point. As I've already outlined, when you talk about 260,000 that was reported last year and then suddenly became 4.3 million, those problems were already there. And what is happening here? When I had my first meeting with our new head of finance, I raised my concerns about the state of our accounts, and I was worried about the accounts, and I wanted a deep dive, and I wanted everything that was wrong to be highlighted. I wanted all the skeletons pulled out of the cupboard, and that's what we've done, and that's why we've ended up with these horrific numbers that we've got now. But I would rather, the problem is that when you run a council for so many years and you don't bother to produce any accounts, you run the risk that there could be things there. And every year that you don't address those, it just gets worse and worse, which is why I wanted everything to stop, go through those accounts, drag it all out. Let's get whatever it is, I want to know about it. I must confess, I did not realize it would be as bad as this, but that's exactly where we are. So yes, I will look in more detail at the spreadsheet that you have talked about. But as I said, we're going to need an awful lot more than that, unfortunately. And this is only the start, but I take your point.
Number 5?
No supplementary.
Okay. 6?
So this is what's the real bill to residents. So you've described, well, the report describes the EFS as support, but in fact it's debt. So please clearly clarify the interest inclusive repayment cost, what's it's expected to be, the number of years residents will be repaying, and the extra annual cost per household, what that equate to covering the debt.
There are too many variables. It depends how successful we are in cutting back costs and how well we do with the asset disposals. So I can't really say that. All I know is that I'm confident that our team will also help raise the revenue we're getting from our commercial income, which is, if you look at the accounts for last year, we actually we brought in £700,000 more than the previous year. So that was an improvement, but it's still nowhere near enough. As I said, you know, we are starting for a situation where we've been handed a council, which is probably already was bust. So it's an unpalatable truth, I'm afraid, but, you know, we have to start. I can't say for sure how much it's going to cost. All I know is that the people that we've got in place to fix it, I have every confidence in. We've got a new head of finance, we've got a new head of place. They're doing excellent jobs, and we will be focusing mostly on raising the income from our commercial property. The quicker we get this fixed, the less it's going to cost. But what we will make sure is that members are updated all the way, and we'll get proper real numbers, not estimates, real numbers. And no matter how well or badly we do, I can assure you that we will be kept informed all the way through the process.
So my next supplementary is senior pay versus public services. Before museums are cut, wards stripped of support and apprentices scrapped, as well as junior officers losing their jobs. What's the total cost of senior management team, and how many senior posts will be deleted before any community services cut?
It's too early to say that yet. A more detailed plan will be brought before council in January. But, you know, I would like to say that I know this is great uncertainty for the staff, especially coming up to Christmas. And I really am sorry that a lot of them find themselves in this situation. We will do everything we can to help them. And I think there was a question from Saj later on where we talk about working with other councils to see if there's any vacancies there. And maybe redeploying them in other areas of the council, but we will work as well as we can to make sure everything is kept to a minimum, and we will support the staff as much as we can.
The final question is, if this isn't failure, what is? So if reserves are negative, accounts years late, borrowing is required to pay staff, assets are being sold off, and members are sidelined, at what precise financial or government's threshold would you admit this council has failed? Or is there, in truth, no level of collapse of this council at which accountability is triggered?
You know, the reality is when we took the council over, it probably was already bust because a lot of the transactions we've had to put through in 24, 25 relate to prior period. So we're already there. We've been there for about 18 months. Now, the fact of the matter is that we are fortunate in one respect that we are a council has a lot of property assets. So there is assets there that we can use. There is a way out of this, but unfortunately it's not a particularly pretty one, and it's a very challenging one. But certainly, I have every faith and confidence that we do have the staff who will be able to deliver that. And I would also emphasise that we can only do this if we have support from all elected members on this council. To paraphrase a certain, oh God, I'm going to quote George Osborne. I really do apologise, but if you recall, we're all in this together, and actually. We are, and Terry, I'm sorry for that. I share your pain, but nonetheless, all joking aside, it is essential that we all work together. This is probably the biggest crisis this council has faced in, well, certainly since I've been here, but I would say it's probably the biggest crisis it's faced in its history, at least certainly in the modern era. So we will all be judged in the future of how well we all work together to get us out of this mess. So I would urge everyone, let's put the party politics aside, work for the common good, and make the right decisions. And I think that's probably what the public would expect from us. And if we do that, the bickering gives politics a bad name. Politicians working together and putting their differences aside gives it a good name. And I suggest that we all do that and work together because the next year or two is going to be pretty tough.
Thank you very much. You notice I didn't mention Lib Dems or any politician there.
I appreciate that.
Sarge, I think it's you.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you for your response to question 9. Just conflicting information there possibly regarding the dates. There's a typo where it says, I read the report day before after the finance officer had drafted it. So this is a typo I noticed, but moving on. My concern is that you state that you received a cabinet briefing on the 26th of November from the regarding the dire circumstances, financial situation of the council on the 26th of November. That was the day after we had a special meeting in this chamber where we debated and discussed the issue around the £1.5 million black hole. Now, is it just a bit of a coincidence that you only found out the day after we had that special meeting? Or is there some game playing going on here where you're drip feeding us information and making us think we're fools and the public out there as fools? Because it sounds to me like you already knew and it's just a timing of it. It's beyond belief. And
You've asked your questions. Do you want me to?
and is it a coincidence also that the this sort of timeline was similarly around the time of the LGR proposal for the Greater Gloucester model that you've had the senior management working on for the last 11 months? And if there is games playing going on, it needs to stop now. We talk about working together, across party, working.
Yep. Can you?
But we're not. That's not actually.
Can you answer the question? As I said before, we were briefed on the 26th of November for the full impact on what the financial situation was. None of us knew what the financial situation was before that time. We knew that there was a briefing to be taken place. The important thing when you publish documents in the public domain that they're as accurate as they possibly can, and they've got all the information they possibly can. So we've been extremely transparent in what's happened, and we've given all that financial information, and it's now presented in these cabinet papers. That's the procedure you follow. You make sure that you get everything right. You don't do things by tip-off here, there and everywhere, and because then the whole information package gets confused and people get the wrong message or they don't understand the situation. The financial situation, as we have said, was published on the 2nd of December. The report was written by the finance officer over that weekend and the week before, and both Declan and myself saw that document on the Monday, and it was okayed and approved to go out to the public after the group leaders were fully briefed on it. So we're following the correct procedures. Question, because I want to bring in David after
Thank you very
that.
much. Yeah, question 11. Thank you for your response. I note that sadly 13 members of staff will lose their jobs. So last thing we want, just before Christmas, there'll be a lot of worried staff at Gloucester City Council at the present time. Does this figure of 13 staff include anyone from the senior leadership who are primarily responsible for the mess that this council is in? Thank you.
You said there that 13 would be losing their jobs. Not necessarily. 13 people have been spoken to because they are at risk of losing their jobs. And I hope that we will keep that number down as low as possible. We are dealing with, we're being as good an employer as we possibly can. We're dealing with them very sympathetically, and we are helping them. And I think there's a fairly good chance most of them, but I don't know how many, or we will at least with some of them be able to redeploy them somewhere else in the organisation, because other vacancies will come up. And we've been speaking to other councils as well, and they will be looking at any vacancies they might have. So it's not necessarily as bad as that, but of course we can't hide from the fact that we do have a big issue here. But this city council, in my view, has always been a good employer. It's always looked after its staff well, and I'm sure we will continue to do so. With regards to senior staff, we're not at that stage yet. So, we'll look into plans in more detail as the next few months go on. We may have a clearer picture later in January when we have the special or the council meeting that looks at the reset of the budget. But it's early days yet. But as I said, we will do what all good employers will do, and we will make sure that our staff are looked after.
Okay, I'm going to give Councillor Gravels 2 questions. Yeah, because we've already done 20 minutes, so I'm extending the members' questions. Then I've got to come back to David. So if you've got a couple of questions you want to ask supplementaries to, then do so.
The one on the airport and the sale of the airport. There are people commenting on social media and other publications that the person who was financing that purchase has withdrawn. Is that figuring in the council's discussions on the future sale of the airport, or are you unaware of what's being said quite publicly about the credibility of this transaction?
As a leader of the council, I get informed about how the process is doing. I'm not going to give any confidential information away, and I'm not going to speculate on what people post on Facebook. Let's put it this way, we're going through the due diligence process. The officers are doing it in a professional way, and we hope to get to the end of the point where the sale is confirmed and the contracts are signed.
So my next supplementary question is on question 19. And we talk about, I talk about Pentana and not allowing us to have access to that information. 16, I beg your pardon. What did I say? Okay, I'm skipping, I apologise. So, yeah, same question. We continue as scrutiny to ask for access to Pantana information and other information. Reports which are due to come to us are missed, target dates are missed. We don't have the information that were promised in a timely way. I keep a notebook of what happens at ONS and what we agree when reports will be coming to ONS. And the two reports on the finances that were due to go to Cabinet, we agreed, if possible, would come to ONS beforehand. That just did not happen. I don't understand why you are totally opposed to having good, open scrutiny. That's where some of the problems of this council lie.
Can you let me answer? Let me answer. Council voted no to giving members of the council access to Pantana, which is an officer tool in which they do their work and put in the latest details and data that they've got. If scrutiny wants a report that Pantana has got the information, all they need to do is ask the officers to provide a report, and they will go into Pantana and they will get the necessary information out, and what it can be divulged in the public domain, it will be divulged, and there will be a report on which you can scrutinise. As far as asking for reports before they're written, if they're not written and not finished, you can't have them. So they've got officers doing this financial work have been working hours after hours, night after night, day after day, trying to get to the point where the papers that are published for this meeting are as complete as they possibly can be.
Appreciate it. Obviously, you don't have to remind me.
No, Councillor Gravels, you've had your time. This is not a time to argue. Can you now move away? From the table, yes, David Redwell wants to come and sit there. David Redwell, I've offered 2 questions. Can you now move? Well, stop arguing. I've given you answers to 2 questions. Please stop arguing with me. Yes, I do.
Thank you, Leader of the Council. So the issue really is a very, very serious situation to be in a financial emergency and a situation with a £17 million deficit for a city council. It's not an easy situation to be in. So my first question is, if this is a financial emergency, what discussions are taking place with the Department of Housing, Communities and Local Government? And where are we with the 2 MPs? There's 2 in the city, not just one. That's Cameron Thomas and Alex McIntyre. And where are we with the discussions with central government? Because that's the first issue. If we can't get an agreement with central government, we're into 114 issues, and we're in Birmingham, and we've got commissioners that are sitting in this building.
Yeah, thank you for that, David. You're correct. We do have 2 MPs in the city. I'm meeting with Cameron Thomas tomorrow in Tewkesbury, so I will be updating him then. The talks with MHCLG, I always never remember the letters. MHCLG, they're actually going quite well. So we're confident that we will get the help that we ask for. But rather frustratingly, we won't get a final decision, I think, until February time. So, but from the indications of what we've had and what they've been telling us, it does look reasonably okay at the minute. So we should be all right.
My second question is, having seen this before in other parts of southwest England, as you know, I represent Transport User Group, so we've been through this in Somerset. So my question there is, how safe are the asset sales? I mean, the thing I care about, passionate about, as the Chief Executive knows, is the bus station, the forum and that project. So how safe is that about remaining in Gloucester City Council's hands, or possibly being transferred to Gloucester County Council's hands? The question we'd be very worried about if the bus station and transport hub which still needs door maintenance and still needs toilet maintenance. And I know that people are now replying to me. Thank you very much, John. How sure are we that that won't be part of any Secretary of State directive to sell property in the city? Because there's a lot of property, and that's what happened in Somerset. They were instructed to sell most of the assets, and that's what the leader of Somerset, who I know very well, has had to do.
We've got, I believe at the last count, 277 property assets in Gloucester City. I don't think there's any need to, and we wouldn't want to sell the jewel in the crown, which will be the Forum or the bus station. As far as the asset sales, once we've applied for EFS funding, we will, if the government grants it, and we believe they will, we will draw down on that in order to, when we need the money. But the asset sales will be made, the ones which are effectively surplus to the needs of this council, or ones which are costing this council to keep, or there's a lot of maintenance to keep. But as far as the important assets, it would be our objective to keep them, and the government would not be directing us on which ones would be sold, unless, of course, you get to the point of bringing in commissioners, Section 114, and the commissioners will be deciding. That's why it's so important that the 4 political groups on the City Council work together, and there'll be a project board set up to make sure that what we do to implement the recovery plan gets all party support, and we move forward and deliver a new council in the future, in a couple of years' time, which is financially sound.
Thank you. I do welcome the need to work together. I think that's what we saw in Somerset. So my third supplementary is we might have heard that mayoral combined authorities are being delayed because there's no unitary government in the areas they are looking. For instance, the one I know most early is Hampshire and the Solent. And there's no unitary council in Hampshire, I expect you know. So my concern here is there is assets of this city council, which I care a lot about, which will be transferred, if we don't sort this out, into 1 or 2 unitary councils in Gloucestershire. So how are we going to work that through? Because local government reorganisation, my understanding, is not stopping. There is no intention of stopping the reorganisation of Gloucestershire or Devon by the Secretary of State or by the Department for Transport. So how are we going to make sure that we don't end up with a non-viable Greater Gloucester, a non-viable West Gloucestershire, and we take this debt into a unitary Gloucestershire? So is that being worked through? Because we're in a different position to, we're a very different position to what Somerset is, and that was sorting it out and remaining as Gloucester City Council. That is certainly not the case, and the government will be consulting in January to April on the future of these local authorities. So how although WECA may be a couple more years down the line now, how are we going to make sure that the debt is sorted before we hand it over to a unitary authority of one description or other, or a county unitary authority? Thank you.
I think the objective is to stabilise the council's finances within a couple of years. That will be an objective to get that cleared and done and dusted before any local government reorganisation takes place. But we know the elected mayors being delayed. We know that the government, I think, is struggling with their bureaucracies to progress local government reorganisation. So let's see. But the objective would be is once the government has identified the new unitary authorities and how they would be shaped, then the assets of all those authorities would be worked through as part of the process of preparing up for vesting day for the new authorities. And a lot of that work has not been done, and it's going to cost this council to go through that process up to vesting day at least £2 million, which we don't have. So the city MP could help us by lobbying his government to secure £2 million extra funding so we can do the work up to vesting day and make sure we do the job as well as possible. the next item on the agenda is agenda item 7, the finance report. There is an error in the recommendations. It says cabinet member for performance and resources is resources. We seem to be picking up that old title in some of our papers. Cabinet member for resources, Declan.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. Well, as we all know, the 2024-25 outturn position has taken this council into negative reserves. Yeah. Additionally, the latest Q2 financial monitor is also highlighting that budget issues still exist across a number of areas of the council's finances. Therefore, a number of the 2025-26 budgets need to be reset, adding additional pressure on the net budget requirement. The only way in which a Section 114 notice for the council can be avoided is if an exceptional financial support EFS application is made to and granted by government. The current estimate is that an EFS application in the range of between 12.5 million and 17.5 million will be required to build up the council's reserve sufficiently to deliver a balanced budget. Our internal finance team have, over the last 6 months, been working on improving the financial controls, budget monitoring and financial reporting. This has led to the findings detailed in the September financial update report and this report. SIPFA advisors, for anyone who's watching this maybe online, SIPFA is the Chartered Institute of Public Finance Accountants. It's the body that deals with accountants in the public sector. We have had advisors with them who have been engaged to assist with the discovery phase, ensuring the work the internal finance team have completed, ensure the base budget position is correct. They have also been providing advice on the EFS process, recovery plan and the governance arrangement required to ensure the council meets government and public expectations. Officers are working on plans to reduce spending and increase income as part of the council's financial recovery, including focused work on culture and property. It will be essential to demonstrate to government that the council can deliver savings, extra income and realise capital receipts. The informal discussions that we've been having with the government have been positive, which means the Section 114 notice is not required at this stage, which is supported by King's Council advice. EFS arrangements provides councils with exceptional permission to capitalise annual revenue costs and then fund them through the long-term borrowing, which can be paid off with capital receipts from asset disposals and other savings plans. The government will require us to produce a recovery plan alongside the EFS application. This document will show how the council intends to manage the process to get back to a stable financial position. It will outline immediate and long-term actions to achieve stabilisation. It has 4 main themes: financial recovery, including taking early actions to deliver savings, ensuring sufficient capacity, capability and resilience in key areas such as finance and asset management, improved budget monitoring, reporting and accountabilities, and appropriate governance and communications to manage the plan. The council's overriding financial strategy for the next few years will be to rebuild its revenue reserves to sufficient levels, reduce the extent of its borrowing position and scale of debt repayments, reset budgets to realistic levels and reduce running costs, increase income to meet those revised budgets, and to improve in its year-end budget monitoring accuracy and timeliness. The key elements to address this will be, as I've already mentioned, asset management. The recovery plan will set out an asset disposal plan, generating sufficient capital receipts, which may be used to temporarily support the cost of revenue spending and pay off borrowing to reduce costs. Another part of the strategy will be to review the council's discretionary spend. Officers have reviewed spending options for cultural services and have concluded the following changes need to be made in that area. Cease to operate Blackfriars Priory from May 2026. Keep the Museum of Gloucester open, but reduce its opening hours from April 2026. Reductions in the council's financial support for festivals and events programmes. And officers have also reviewed the council's community engagement service area and have concluded the following changes need to be made: a change in community safety management, reduction in staffing and replacing the members' grants with a different method of awarding grants, and review arrangements for the SOLAS partnership. Additionally, the council is also reviewing the management of its countryside unit. With regards to fees and charges, these will be comprehensively reviewed as part of the usual budget setting process in February. However, the following are recommended for approval by Cabinet tonight as part of this report. with immediate implementation from the 1st of January 2026. Green waste optional collection service will be increased to £60 and concessions will be removed. Bulky waste fees will increase to £30 for up to 3 items and £10 for each additional item, and concessions will also be removed. Fly tipping penalty notices will increase from £400 to the scaled approach is set out in the table in the report in front of you. Employee costs, the council is introducing what we call a mutually agreed resignation scheme. With regards to recruitment, officers are recruiting all current and temporary interim appointments and seeking to regularise these into permanent positions if essential, or releasing those staff if not. It is also more rigorously reviewing all vacant posts and suspending the apprenticeship programme for a year. Other actions the council is working on is we are continuing to review all non-essential spend. Officers are exploring further restructuring options and other operational efficiencies, including the scope of the UPICO contract and further actions to reduce housing, temporary accommodation, revenue spend, and further income generation opportunities. With regards to governance and communication, SIPFA advisors have highlighted that to be successful, an EFS application will need to be accompanied by robust governance arrangements that will satisfy government scrutiny and confidence that the recovery plan will actually be delivered. This is particularly the case for a council that is in no overall political control, as government will want reassurance that tough, unpalatable and undesirable decisions will be made in a timely fashion and implemented with minimal scope for political backtracking. If government does not have the confidence in the council's governance arrangements, there is a risk they will send in commissioners to take charge of the council's decision-making and a considerable additional cost to the council. SIPRA advisors have likened this to a command, control, gold, silver, bronze emergency planning approach, where officers will be taking immediate decisions whilst keeping members informed and seeking member endorsement of recovery plans drawn up by officers rather than seeking member approval. Effectively, the council should treat the delivery of its recovery plan as if the council were already in a Section 114 scenario, where the council's chief financial officer, along with the other statutory officers, would effectively take over decision-making responsibility for all expenditure. However, the drawing up and delivery of the council's recovery plan needs to be led by a subgroup of the council's senior management team acting as a recovery leadership team. This team will assign lead accountabilities for delivery of each strand of the recovery plan to individual officers. This team would also benefit from independent external advisors such as SIPFA and a property expert, as asset management is a key priority for this recovery plan. It will be critical to ensure there is no confusion of accountabilities and duplication of effort with regards to member oversight of the recovery plan activity. It is therefore recommended that regular reports on the delivery of this plan will come exclusively to a cross-party member task and finish recovery board to be chaired by the leader of the council, with terms of reference to be developed with the assistance of SIPFA advisors. Additionally, when necessary, reports seeking executive decisions will be brought to Cabinet and can be scrutinised by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. The tough and challenging decisions that need to be made to stabilise the council's financial position will be of great importance and concern to the public, councillors, external stakeholders and staff. It is also important to ensure transparency of information about these decisions and to what end. It will be critical that effective communications are delivered around the council's recovery plan, and a communications plan will be drawn up and implemented through this process as part of the recovery plan. Therefore, tonight, I'm recommending that Cabinet is asked to note the revised 2024-25 outturn, note the 6-month financial monitoring position 25-26, note the independent ARA, that's the internal audit, Lighthouse report in Appendix B, as requested by Cabinet, which investigated the problems the council has faced in producing timely accounts since the cyber attack. Recommend to council approval of a revised budget for 25-26, increasing the net budget requirement by 2.8 million as detailed in Table 3. Approve that an application for exceptional financial support is submitted to the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, and to note the outline recovery plan shown in Section 10 and the government's arrangements that will need to be set up around this. And finally, to approve the following changes to fees and charges, which I've already mentioned. And that's pretty much it. So I'm going to hand that over to the rest of the Cabinet for any comments that they might want to make.
Rebecca?
It's more of a question, actually, if that's all right, Declan. Is that figure now closed, Alison, the 24-25 figure?
The discovery work that CIPFA are carrying out for us hasn't completed yet. They've done quite a bit of the work, but they haven't completed it. So if they found anything, it could change.
Anybody else? Luke?
Yeah, I think it's important that we support this this report and the application to the MHCLG for the financial support. I think as a council, it's quite important that we work together on this across council with sort of cross-party support. So I really hope that it goes well. I think the bottom line is that it's not just about the financial position. It's also about safeguarding essential statutory services that residents rely on, whilst sort of transforming the services at the same time to get us back onto a stable footing. So I think that's really important to know.
Anybody else? Go on.
As Cabinet Member for Culture and Leisure, it's with a heavy heart that I read about some of the cuts we're going to have to make in the culture service. I'd like to pay tribute to senior officers that have handled this and the plan as delicately but as pragmatically as they possibly could. We know there are no options to reduce statutory services, so it was inevitable where cuts would have to be made. But we've made sure that we're minimising the impact on our residents and also preserving those relationships that we have with our community organisations, with our funders, and making sure that we will still have a cultural offering for Gloucester that we can be proud of, although perhaps not quite the one that we envisaged when we first set out. I'd also like to pay tribute to any staff members, not just within the cultural service, but who are potentially impacted by some of these changes that we'll be seeing. Speaking from my own portfolio, I know that we have amazing staff members in the cultural teams. I like to delve every now and again into Google reviews on our venues and cultural services just to see what the public at large think of the work that we're doing, and particularly of the individuals that are involved in delivering those services. And they speak so highly of them. They really do an amazing job. They add a personal touch to any customers that they come in contact with. They run our venues superbly, and I'm really gutted that they're having to go through this at the moment. And I'd just like to offer my personal support to anybody in the cultural team or wider than that who needs any support.
Rebecca?
Yes, I just ditto really what Caroline has said there. I'm supporting this tonight as a member of the Cabinet with a really heavy heart, actually. I didn't sign up to this as being a Cabinet member, and I know my colleagues here tonight didn't either. We find ourselves in an absolute shocking situation, and I just want to give my thanks to our section. Oh gosh, I've completely forgotten what you are. 151 officer Alison Turner, because this hasn't been easy at all for her. She's come in as a new member of staff. And she's had to uncover all this. My deep concern, and I want this on the record, is that position isn't closed yet for 24-25. And my fear is that actually will go up. And I think that's being honest, because it hasn't been closed. But I do support this because I want us to get out of this mess. And I don't think by abstaining or voting against it as a Cabinet member is going to do any good for the emergency funding that we are seeking for. But I must say, I'm really upset by this, and I'm really angry as well. And I just want to also say for the record that I'm so pleased that there is a special council meeting now, and that it is happening next week, and it hasn't been left over Christmas, because the members of our public who is really this council has a right to hear, and for people to come into this public chamber and to actually hear the truth behind these figures, because that's all we can really owe at the moment to our residents. Thank you.
Could I just say that when we were preparing for the elections in 2024, it was on the plan that we would, if we got to lead the council, we'd be looking to improve the services and delivering improvements. I know we both Declan and myself asked a load of questions in the previous council about the unfinished statements of accounts. We ended up coming into office with 3 years sets of accounts incomplete. So we had, and the point we made at the time in opposition was that if you haven't got accurate statements of accounts, you're not really going to know what the financial health of the organisation you're taking over. And I never thought it would get as bad as this. I've had phone calls and messages, and Declan would phone me up. I've got the latest news, another financial problem. But I must say, I want to thank Alison Turner for working really hard since April and doing all this discovery work. So we probably, for the first time in 5 or 6 years, have an accurate figure on what the income and outgoings of this council are, what the reserves are, and what we need to do to balance the books. We are an asset-rich council. We have probably quite a large amount of surplus property that we can dispose of. It's not critical to the running of this council, and ones that don't provide us with an additional income. And that will be one of the priorities in order to balance the books. And we're looking at this 17 million. It's over a 7-year period, in effect, it's covering. And we don't necessarily need to draw that down. If an asset goes through and we've sold it, then we don't need to draw that money down. We've got to work really hard. We've got to be absolutely vigilant that we get the best price for any property we do put on sale. So we won't be putting everything up for sale straight away or anything like that. That's why you need that cushion of the government's funding. And we have to work with the government. We have to convince the government that we really are making the tough, hard decisions to get through this. And I'm sure we will do, because I don't think any of us, including the 2 members of Parliament, want us to get to the point of a Section 114 notice. It explains it in the report there. I want to thank the people from CIPFA who've come in to help our finance team. They've done a lot of this work. They're experts on it, and they will also assisting in helping us draw up the application form for extraordinary financial support. They're experts at this, and that will help make sure that we put everything in that we need to put in to get the government support. I think that's about all I've got to say, other than, yeah, it's a shock that we've got to this point. It's taken time to discover it all. You know, we, in 2017, the council agreed, although I think Terry and me voted against it, agreed that we would borrow up to 80 million pounds for commercial investments. And of course, one of those commercial investments that we had bought in 2017 was the King's Walk shopping centre. And as far as we're aware, it's never made any money whatsoever. It's a drain. It's costing this council nearly £1 million a year at the moment. And it's on a long lease that we can't get out of. And I said to the officers, what do we do about it? They said, the only thing we can do is drive up the income and get the tenants in there and run it as best we can. And it hasn't been run that particularly well. We need to get experts, not only into the finance team, we need to get experts in to assist in property management so that we can get the best tenants in there on the secure tenancies and drive up the income, because that will help this council's finances as well. But we've got a plan, that's the point. We've got a plan. But we want to stick to that plan, and we need to push hard as fast as we possibly can, without running so fast we fall over, to make sure that if we get LGR, David, we hand over with the accounts sound and fine, and I'm sure we can get to that point with the support of the members of this council. Are we happy to agree with the report?
Yeah.
Good, thank you. Right then, item number 8 is additional controls for houses in multiple occupation in Gloucester. This really is a good news report. For many years, I've been trying to get the council to come up with a policy to deal with the snowballing effect of houses in multiple occupation affecting a number of wards and affected my ward. What I didn't realise until the report was written, that I have the highest percentage of HMOs in Kingsholm and Wootton. And now we're taking action. I say we see the situation in some of the wards in the city where landlords are outbidding private buyers, and family homes in older parts of the city are just being bought up and converted into HMOs, and are causing problems in those areas because they deliver overcrowding, congested streets with too many cars, poor refuse management, bins chucked all over the place, a whole number of things. And some of the HMOs are just not being managed too well, and they're affecting the demographics in some of the communities that we've got. And the 6 wards which they're having the biggest impact on is Kingsholm and Wootton, Westgate, Barton and Tredworth, Moorland, Kingsway and Elmbridge. We have 1,680 HMOs, as far as we're aware. Only 312 of them are licensed. If you have 5 or more persons living in that HMO, then it's mandatory license, and they've got to be licensed, and that's the 312. But if it's 3 to 4 people, they won't be licensed at the moment. It's our intention that all HMOs operating in the city of Gloucester will be licensed in future. That will help us improve the management of these HMOs. It will also mean that we know where they are, and that we can properly manage the area to make sure that, certainly in some areas of the city, we don't continue to see more and more being put in there and changing the demographics, as I said already. The licence fee that we will charge will help us manage the HMO stock in Gloucester and help us carry out enforcement and ensure that we improve the quality of the accommodation that's provided, make sure it's not overcrowded. The licensing also will help us with Article 4 direction, which will mean that all HMOs would require planning permission in the 6 wards that we've identified that have the highest percentage of HMOs already, and higher percentage than the national average. The advantage of licensing as well is that we can use those properties that are licensed as part of the calculations that come to the planning committee. When we're looking at new HMOs, we have a policy which says no more than 10% in a 100-metre radius. But so often, officers are unaware about where all the HMOs are. At least we'll have a true record which will help us do that. The Article 4 direction will probably take us until March 2027 to implement. It needs to take time. It needs to have, if you rush it too quick, then landlords can object. But it's also got to go through a public consultation. But the first part of this will be the licensing, which we think we should be able to get in following a public consultation by July 26. 2026. I say there will be public consultation on this one. And I think what we'll see is communities that, particularly in the older parts of the city, the demographics there are protected, and where people wanting to buy properties in those areas aren't outbid by landlords who then want to subdivide these units. I noticed this a few years ago, it's been going on. When I moved out of my house and I looked into the estate agents and realised that the property that I had previously rented before I bought was being rented out for more than 2 to 3 times the rent per month. And what was happening is that it was the best way that landlords could maximise their income by cramming as many people into it rather than even renting them out to a small family that might want to rent them. And then also people were looking to buy were outbid by these same people that weren't even resident of the city. They're just buying up property after property. We have to manage it. And I think this is a policy that will assist in doing that. So I'm hoping Cabinet will support.
Yes, thank you. I think it marks quite a significant step forward in our commitment to improving living standards across the city, protecting residents and ensuring that the communities are well balanced, as you've sort of highlighted. The report itself is very detailed, so I'm very impressed with the officers' work on that. I think the measures that are in there strike the right balance between sort of supporting the housing options that we need for under 35s who might not be eligible for one bed rates, whilst reinforcing the accountability of landlords, which I think has been lacking. And as you've said, it sort of does stop the changing dynamics of the local areas and communities that HMOs can have the effect on.
Well, I know it's one of the biggest issues in my ward from people writing to me complaining about another property being lost to a HMO. And it does change the dynamics, impacts on the local schools and everything else. And we've just got to make sure we have balanced communities and not allow our communities to be changed, frankly, by external landlords in the way that it's happening in some parts of the city. Thank you. We'll agree to that one? Yep. Okay. No, I know it was excellent work. I was impressed. The guy that wrote this report and the people that worked on it did an excellent job. And this is the frustration that I had year after year, is that we never had the appropriate data or information to be able to process this and to go ahead with licensing or even go ahead with Article 4 direction, because we just didn't have the evidence to show that these areas were struggling and having problems. Though I could feel it from my own post-back as such, but say we didn't have the data, but an excellent piece of work. We're going to agree to that one. Yep. Next one is number 9, Gloucestershire Housing Partnership. Rebecca.
Thank you, Chair. And this was actually another report that went through overview and scrutiny. And my colleague, Luke Shervey, undertook that, which I was very grateful. And I did look back at it and I was very pleased. So, yes, I'm delighted to bring this report today. It provides an outline of the Gloucestershire Housing Partnership and Gloucester City Council's role in hosting the partnership team and the contracts on behalf of the partners. Gloucester City Council is proud to have led on the Gloucestershire Housing Partnership since its creation back in 2017. Housing is and probably always will be a challenge in our city. Leading this partnership and hosting the team shows our commitment to prioritising this issue, not just in the city but across the county. There is much we can achieve in partnership if we continue to collaborate effectively, reviewing best practice and learning and putting the people at the heart of our work. Both rough sleeping and domestic abuse, the areas covered by the partnership team, are complex and not specific to Gloucester. Both require us to work together with district and county colleagues to truly tackle the causes of these issues and provide consistent approaches and shared services across Gloucestershire. I was delighted myself to attend the launch of Gloucestershire's new Tackling Domestic Abuse strategy for 2025 to 2028 on Monday of this week. This strategy was created with input from victims, survivors, professionals, community partners and the public, and it focused on working together to prevent abuse before it starts, supporting victims and survivors and holding perpetrators to account. Domestic abuse recorded crimes in Gloucestershire show a 32% increase from 2021 to 2022, remaining consistent for 2022 to 2023 and 2023 to 2024. Domestic abuse also accounts, shockingly, for 38% of all violent crimes reported in the county. And although these percentages are shocking, it does mean that they are being reported and the start of much needed help for victims. I do hope my fellow Cabinet members here today will support and welcome this report. So thank you.
Anybody want to comment, or were you happy to agree? Luke?
Sorry. Yes, I very much welcome the report. As Rebecca said, I presented it at overview and scrutiny on her behalf, and I think it was received well. I got robust questions, so it's definitely gone through the motions. The partnership ensures that residents have access to supportive and coordinated services across the county, which is really important for rough sleeping and domestic abuse. I think it will deliver positive impacts for communities across not just across the city, but across the county as well. So I very much support this.
Report agreed? Yeah. That's discretionary housing payments policy. I think that's yourself, Declan.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. This hasn't been before overview and scrutiny, but it is still very good. Essentially, this paper it's a modest but important refinement to our discretionary housing payments policy. These payments exist to help residents who receive housing benefit or the housing element of universal credit, but still face hardship meeting their housing costs. They're one of the tools available to us to support the most vulnerable people in the city, ensuring the temporary financial pressures do not escalate into homelessness, instability or crisis. This policy underpins that support, helping us deliver fair, consistent and timely decisions for those who need it most. The scheme is a long established one, operating since 2001 with a national statutory framework and supported by a government grant funding, which was 187,500 this year, plus admin funding. It is a valued and practical mechanism that enables us to intervene early when residents face shortfalls in their rent or unexpected changes in their circumstances. The amendments before us tonight do two key things. First, they streamline decision-making so that designated officers within the benefits team, those closest to the cases and most familiar with the guidance, are empowered to determine applications rather than requiring decisions solely at team leader level. This is entirely consistent with DWP guidance and allows a more responsive service. The second thing it enables us to do is provide delegated authority for minor policy adjustments to allow us to keep the policy live, updated and aligned with national guidance without needing to return to Cabinet for routine housekeeping changes. These changes matter because residents seeking discretionary help are often doing so at a point of stress or risk. By simplifying the process and shortening decision times, we can improve the customer experience, enable timely intervention and ensure support reaches people when they most need it. The safeguards remain strong. The policy ensures decisions are made fairly, consistently with proper monitoring, including reporting to the Department for Work and Pensions. Financial exposure is controlled too. Budget oversight remains in place to ensure we do not exceed available resources. The benefit of this policy is that it strengthens our ability to support residents in need. It allows our officers to act promptly, aligns with good practice and ensures resources are managed with responsibility. I therefore recommend that Cabinet approve the revised discretionary housing payments policy as set out and endorse the delegated arrangements proposed. So Cabinet is asked to resolve that the discretionary housing payments policy be amended and authority be delegated to make minor amendments to the policy to the service manager in consultation with the Cabinet Member of Resources and the Head of Finance and Resources. So it's a fairly technical adjustment. I hope people are happy with that.
We're happy? Yep, okay. That was, the next one is again you, Declan, I think, isn't it? Local Council Tax Support Scheme 26-27.
Yeah, we're supposed to review this every year, and this is a policy which I'm particularly proud of, if I'm honest, because what we're doing here is to consider the local council tax support scheme for 26-27. It's one of the most important tools we have for supporting residents on the lowest incomes, and it is a statutory requirement that we adopt a scheme before March every year. So this comes before Cabinet round about this time every year. Our proposal tonight, it's straightforward, and effectively it's to maintain the existing scheme for a further year, ensure it's updated for any national legislation changes, and give us the flexibility to make urgent amendments where required in the event of a national emergency, but only when these are authorised by government. There are several reasons why continuing with our current scheme, I believe, is the right choice. Firstly, Gloucester has one of the most supportive and generous local schemes in the county, offering up to 100% reduction in council tax for eligible working age households on the lowest incomes. That level of protection matters. 83% of our working age caseload currently receives the full amount, which shields these families from additional financial stress at a time when the cost of living remains a significant challenge. Second reason I would recommend that we continue with the policy is that simply maintaining stability is critically important. Since the national council tax benefit was abolished in 2013, many councils have significantly reduced support levels. In effect, what we're doing is we're keeping those benefits the same as they were at national level in 2013. Other councils have gradually reduced the support, but we haven't. So we have protected residents by broadly mirroring the original system for 12 years. This continuity has helped people during an ongoing cost of living crisis in which the poorest households spend proportionally more on food and housing. Third reason I would recommend it is the administration of the scheme is efficient and well understood. The move to universal credit has already justified alignment of processes, making claims simpler for residents and for the council to process. Continuing the existing arrangements avoids disruption and uncertainty. It is also worth noting the consultation process attracted no objections, and major precepting authorities were supportive, including the County Council, which has explicitly backed retention of the current scheme. The financial implications are also manageable. While Gloucester has no longer fully funds the system, having reduced the subsidy since the government, has no longer fully funds the system, having reduced the subsidy since 2013. The report makes clear that there are no changes proposed for 26-27, and the annual review confirms that the scheme remains operationally and financially viable. So therefore, I would recommend that Cabinet approves this proposal and we recommend to Council the adoption of the local council tax support scheme for 26-27 with the attached provisions to reflect legislative changes and provisions for emergency amendment where required. So I would strongly urge Cabinet to support this tonight. I think it's a particularly good scheme, and I think the fact it's one of the most generous in the county is something that we should be proud of. So I would recommend that we accept it.
Anybody want to say any more? Are we happy to support it? Okay. The next item is in the name of Sarah Sawyer, but she's not here to present it, so I'll just do that. This is effectively a report on the SIL spending in income and also for Section 106 for 24-25. And the Cabinet is asked to resolve that the infrastructure funding statement 24-25, Appendix 1 and Appendix 2 combined be approved for publication and published on the Council's website by the 31st of December, and its SIL and SO Section 106 information be submitted to the Government. the content of the seal rate summary 2025 Appendix 3 be noted and it be approved for publication on the council's website by the 31st of December. There's a lot of detail in here, and if anybody wants to know what money's been spent on and where it's come from, we can read it. And if you need to ask more detail, then the officer is Sarah Screen, who's a Tewkesbury Borough Council employee, because this is particularly the community infrastructure levy is managed to some extent across all three councils that's Cheltenham, Tewkesbury and Gloucester. Just want to go to page 205, and the Mass Rapid Transport renamed the Bus Rapid Transit in November, was renamed, is got a comma where there should be a dot, and which means it's not as much money that has been spent or suggested. So it's got 2 million. Well, I can't say it now, but after the 5 and before the 6 at the end of it, it should be a dot, not a comma. So just want to make that correction. I think, David, you're aware. Other than that, I'm not going to speak on this for too long. Are we okay? Yeah. The report? Thanks. Well, somebody's been smoking too much. Right, sounds like it anyway. Next item is Greyfriars project delivery proposal. We've been working really hard on this one. This is really an exceptionally good news report. All members will know that all parties supported the submission to the government to get the levelling up funding. It took us a couple of bids and a bit of time to get the funding agreed by the government because, well, I've got my sheet now I'm looking for. Yeah, reading off the wrong sheet. Because there was a general election, so we finally awarded the money of £11 million in November 2024. I understand that is in the City Council's bank account. It is safe. It is money provided as grant funding by the government. It can only be used for this project. If it's not used for this project, then it would be sent back to the government. But I do think the Greyfriars project is going to be another piece in the jigsaw of Gloucester's regeneration, and it's going to be a really important project. The government set us a time to complete by March 2028, so we should finish before local government reorganisation is complete. And just to correct a few misnomers and comments being made on Facebook, it will be relocating the indoor market to Bell Walk, and it will also create a new food hall adjacent to it. It will be a far better indoor market than what we've got at the moment. It's going to be the one that's going to attract those traders that will do exceptionally good business and will bring people in to Gloucester, and it will help assist the footfall in the Eastgate Shopping Centre. It will also help this council probably let some of the vacant premises that are there. Some of the ones that are premises that are vacant at the moment is because that's where the new indoor market is going to be put. The old market will be gutted out in stage 1, which is this is where we're requesting £4 million. It will be gutted right out and asbestos removed and prepared for the next stage, which will be creating a new multi-purpose cultural centre, which will have capacity for 450 people seated and about 700 people standing. There will also be improvements to the public realm around and the restoration and refurbishment of the Folly, Addison's Folly. I just forgot the name for a second then. And also what is the old bowling green. We will be refurbishing the bowling green hut or building, and that will be a cafe and a cycle store place. It's part of the levelling up funding, and the area of the bowling green will become a green open space for people to enjoy. So this is the first major stage of where we're going to carry out some actual work. The lot of design work, I know journalists are interested to see what the pictures are like. So, but there will be a lot of that being published, because we'll be going out to consultation, not only with stakeholders, but with the public as well, to get their feedback, because what we need to make sure is we get this project done as well as possible. But it will make this area of the city a place where people will want to go. It'll be a stepping stone from walking down to across the docks or going to the cathedral. It'll be an attraction. I think it'll be a place where people want to congregate as well. That's all I have to say at the moment on this, but I'm just asking Cabinet support to give authority delegated to the head of place in consultation with the leader of the council, head of finance, to take all necessary steps and undertake relevant actions to facilitate the delivery of the Greyfriars project in accordance with the project programme and budgets. Authority be delegated to the head of place in consultation with the leader of the council, head of finance and resources, to release the first phase of project funding, that's £4 million, to enable the completion of phase 1 as detailed in the project programme of the Greyfriars Quarter project. It be noted that the development of the Capital Projects Board will monitor the progress and approve changes where necessary to enable delivery of this project. And I think I got to the end. Well, I turned over 2 pages. Sorry. This will enable timely decision making in response to urgent, unforeseen requirements, without the need for further referral to Cabinet. So, are we happy to support that? And is there anybody who wants to comment? Rebecca.
Yes, I just want to say I'm really excited about this project. I was really pleased that the Labour government decided to keep the Levelling Up Fund in order for us to do this project. I have seen the Facebook comments with regards to it, and I think it's really important to say, which you did, which this is separate money that has come from the government of over £11 million. And there isn't going to be a plastic roof that's going to be put on Greyfriars, because that was a comment that I've had said to me on a number of occasions. It is going to be maintained in the sense that English Heritage, I believe, have had dialogues with officers of this council about it. It is really important for future generations, and I think a lot has to be done with Eastgate Market. As at the moment, it is just unsustainable. So I am really excited by this project, and so yeah, bring on the rest of the phases. Thank you.
Declan, then Caroline.
Yeah, just a brief comment, really. I just want to reiterate, it's actually quite nice to see there's still some good news stories out there, irrespective of all the rest of the problems, and there are still things to look forward to. I think that whole area needs a lot of work done to it, but it's got so much potential, compared to the rest of the city. I mean, the whole thing is going to be fabulous when it's finished and transformative. And when you think about the Forum, King's Quarter, the old Debenhams, the university moving in, plus this, it's going to transform the whole city, the centre of the city, all for the good. So there's still lots to look forward to, and I think this is a project that I'm really looking forward to seeing completed.
Caroline.
Yeah, really pleased that this report has come and that we're moving forwards with this. It's a really exciting opportunity for Gloucester and for culture in Gloucester. I think having the cultural hub in that location will give people a reason to go out in the city at night. We know that the Docks is doing really well, providing nighttime eating and entertainment options, but it'd be really nice to bring that kind of clientele into the city centre as well. When I first became Cabinet Member for Culture and Leisure, I met with a number of people in the community who come to me with really great ideas for things they'd like to see, not just culture-wise, but also to do with food and drink outlets and food markets and things like that. So I'm really pleased that this will give an opportunity to those people local in Gloucester who have great ideas, that we'll be able to give them opportunities to bring those to life and to actually put them into action. So I'll definitely be getting back in touch with those contacts and saying, you know, get involved in this public consultation and bring your ideas to us, because we will be able to help you move forwards with those. And I know there'll be other local organisations as well that will help our entrepreneurs and our people in the community that have ideas that they just want to bring to life. So I think, yeah, as well as culture, as well as the food offering, local businesses, local entrepreneurs who really want to bring their idea to life, it's going to give so many opportunities to so many people.
Is that everybody? It is a really good project, and I know it's one that's in principle got all party support, which I think is really good. I mean, we might well have, I don't like that colour or this colour, you know, the details, but then that's inevitable with a project like this. But I think it's going to make this area of the city centre so much better than it is today, and bring more life into the area, but also more jobs and more economic life and more successful businesses. Where you know, the big problem with the current market is the back end of it is just empty, and nobody can make any money there. They've never been able to make any money there. You've got to have people walking by. You need to have people walking in. What you don't need is to have to walk through a big building and just to get to the stall at the end of the building. You just don't make money, and that's why it's not succeeded. It was I mean, I remember the old market before when it was on Eastgate Street. Going there with my parents, and that was straight off the street, and that's why it was really busy, but it was also the retail trade at the time. But I think if we've got a great food hall for people to stop and eat, and a really good food and beverage offer in the market itself, that's going to bring a lot of people in, because it's going to be adding something to the city's offer. And it'll be something people say, I've never seen the market in Gloucester, we better go in there. They've got those olives there, or they've got this bread that you can get nowhere else, so you might as well go in and do it. That's what you need there. Anyway, we're happy to approve the stage one of this project. Well, it's not really stage one. We've done a lot of work already to get to stage one, but stage one of the actual on the ground start of work.
Base camp.
Base camp, yeah. Building base camp, yeah. Okay, thanks. Thank you very much. Cheers. That's the end of the meeting.